introduce yourself for people that may not know who you are.
Everybody knows me. Do you know who I am? My name is Sam Fiorella. I am a principal at Sensei Marketing and author of Influence Marketing.
You know, I'd like to say that I knew you before you had a cloud score.
You knew me when I had a cloud score.
To your point, you know, because I know cloud is your favorite dirty word, you know, it spawned not only a resurgence, I don't want to say resurgence in your career because that kind of would imply that you didn't have one before, but it definitely put you in a spotlight. It happened, I believe, a Wired magazine article. For those that never heard that story, briefly sum it up for me.
I can't believe that after 4 years, I'm still getting asked this question, but yes, clout certainly put me on the map, so I guess I should give them some credit, more so than I was before. And the story was basically that I was leaving my former agency of which I was a partner, and I was looking for other jobs, and as part of the interview process I was interviewed by a relatively large ad agency in the city of Toronto. Now, this is going back about almost 4 years ago, I think it was, or maybe a little longer. Anyway, and one of the questions, you know, it was going really well. It was for a VP's position, which I was qualified for. The first interview was going really well, and then as part of the interview she asked, by the way, what's your clout score? And I embarrassingly said, clout? I don't know what that is. And so she goes, oh, let me tell you. And she told me, and she pulled it up on her screen, and my score was, I think, 34 or something like that, which according to clout is still a respectable score. But she had said to me, the attitude and the tone of the meeting changed. And it said, that's a little low. We're looking for somebody with a higher clout score. And I was shocked, and I didn't get the call back, even though she led me to believe that I was overqualified. And so then I looked up what clout was, and I understood that it was a measure of influence. And so I said, I need to get the highest possible score if I'm going to be judged by what other people say. And so I spent day and night on Twitter, and I brought my score up to an 82, I think, at its peak. And then I realized that it meant absolutely nothing. You know what I mean? Any connections that I was making as a result of that high score were fake, and there was no business coming my way as a result of it. So I basically opted out, and I'm now, you know, I was a zero for a long period of time, and so that was what started me on this journey, frankly.
And the reason I brought that up, because, you know, I've been quoted in the past as saying numbers lie, relationship rules, and I'm not a believer in numbers. Yes, you need numbers, and you said it best. If you got a big pool of numbers that you can dig into to find the core, great. You got a better sample to pick from. But just to have the numbers can be bought, numbers can be gamed. Cloud is so gamified, you know, beyond belief. But the aspect of a number defining a relationship is flawed to me on so many levels.
Well, just the premise of it.
Exactly.
You know, I mean, there is, you know, and there's all kinds of study and research behind this that a number cannot adequately represent. You know, it's a scientific thing to represent something that's non-scientific. You know, for me, influence marketing I've been quoted as saying that influence marketing is a verb. It's not a noun. It implies action, right? Influence is you know, one person's ability to sway the beliefs, attitudes, or behaviors of another person. By extension, influence marketing is the ability of one person to sway the purchase decision of another. And what tools like Clout and Peer Index and the rest of them traditionally have been doing is, we're going to tell you who can amplify the message to the greatest audience. Well, to me, that's just that. It's amplification. It's a measure of amplification. It's not a measure of influence, because there's no direct correlation between me talking about your business to 10,000 people and X number of people buying that product, right? And as part of the book, you know, Danny Brown and I wrote together, the research that we did, we found that people with smaller networks of more closely connected, definable relationships are actually bigger influencers of the purchase decision. And so we're trying to get everybody to sort of reorient how they think about influence marketing, which is what the book was really all about.
And I use the old example of, if you were to go back 30, 40 years, you'd have all this marketing spent, you know, the Mad Men years or whatnot, targeting, you know, the moneymaker of the family. So your traditional male father figure, you know, whatever. But it was the mother, the wife, behind the scenes with a 0 clout score, no internet presence, not even known in a CRM index, that trumped everything that you spent your marketing dollars on. And we still have that today because it's that, to your point, you may not have had a valuable clout number, but neither did Obama compared to Bieber. But at the end of the day, only one of them has the big red button.
That's right, exactly. But you know what, and I actually, even with that argument with, Bieber versus Obama, I use that all the time. But the reality is both of them, can be influential and are influential in terms of broadcasting a message. But really, one is influential. You know what I mean? And the clout score doesn't define whether he's influential or not. In fact, he doesn't even tweet himself. You know, for the most part, it's a team of people that do it. But to your point about the moms, you're right. Moms traditionally have that, but that's still a problem today with mommy bloggers, right? I know I've often reached out to mommy bloggers, but you have to take a look at the situational factors that your customer is in. A mom, single mom, makes decisions differently in terms of what she buys and doesn't buy than a mom who has a husband in the house. A mom with 3 kids in university makes decisions differently than with 3 kids under the age of 6. So just being a mom, you know what I mean, or being the woman of the household is different based on that context. And that's something that social influence scores have just never been able to sort of drill down to. They might be a good place to start if you want to, give them that credit, but you really do need to understand your customer, how they make a purchase decision, and then who do they talk to about those purchases. That's who's influential, not the big names.
Well, to your point, now that all of these numbers and whatnot are public, you're not buying the list. But in the old days, you would have bought a list, but you still had to validate that list. You had to distill the list into the core. The one aspect of your presentation that always caught my attention is social selling, to use our friend's John's recent term. It's not about marketing, it's about sales. And we've always had that back and forth argument between sales and marketing, one blaming the other. But at the end of the day, you can have the best campaign in the world, and if it doesn't do a conversion, it's just art.
And this is the big problem with sales versus marketing. It's in tale as old as time, as they say. But think of it this way. Why is it, and this is probably going to be the topic of my next book, why do CMOs rarely become CEOs, right? Why is marketing the first budget to get cut when the economy goes into...
The biggest turnover is in the CMO office.
Exactly. And the reason is that marketers hide behind terms like earned media, right? And they hide behind metrics such as number of followers, number of likes. Marketing is not a supporting player in my mind. Marketing needs to be the holder of the vision, the holder of the customer experience, from awareness to purchase, and then from purchase to becoming an advocate that fuels the funnel again. And if marketers can make that shift and start working on what sells, and if I'm going to nurture a relationship, I don't want to nurture a relationship with just everybody. I want to nurture a relationship with people that could potentially be a customer of mine. So that's, I think, the shift that needs to happen, and what Danny and I have been trying to educate people on. And when that happens, and when marketers become accountable to the bottom line, things like scores are going to be really irrelevant.
Another good friend of ours, Lavigne Blanchard, just did a couple of posts where he's really talking about the customer acquisition versus the customer retention, and how social media is not necessarily the most efficient customer acquisition tool, but is by far one of the most powerful customer retainment. And I think that goes back to your experience point, where marketing is not marketing sales, it's marketing the experience that makes you want to buy.
Exactly. I mean, in my business with Sensei, we focus on the yin yang of everything, right? And it's an old Chinese philosophy that covers everything in life, from ecology to health, and quite frankly to business. The two sides of the yin yang for business is customer acquisition on the one side and then customer development on the other. You really can't have one without the other if your business is going to succeed. And if you're doing it well and you're putting equal efforts into both sides, customer acquisition will drive customers. Customers that become advocates will drive new customers into the funnel, and it self-propels, and it's a healthy ecosystem. But you need to understand the steps, right? Somebody goes from being from the awareness stage to nurturing. Consider it: do I buy it? Do I need it? Is it too much money? To the point where there's a desire, and you need to understand how to communicate with the customer at each one of those stages. But then once they become a customer, what happens when you buy any product? The first thing, buyer's remorse. Did I make the right cognitive dissonance, it's called? You know, did I make the right decision? I don't know. So you have to get past that satisfaction stage to become loyal. But because you're loyal in the customer development sphere, doesn't mean you're an advocate. It just means that if the price goes up 5 cents a unit, you're going to stay a customer. But becoming an advocate means that the customer experience with the brand and the product is so great that people are going to want to voluntarily talk about your product and drive more people into the funnel. So understanding whatever your business is and whatever the stages of the life cycle are, once a business understands that, and understanding who influences people, not just to buy, but who influences people to go from one stage to the next, to the next, to the next, and to funnel that, that's the future of influence marketing in my mind.
And there's also the counterculture as well, as the one that you can do all that work to get them to the point, and all it takes is one person to push them backwards. So dealing with that reverse aspect of it as well is something that, at the end of the day, is knowing the relationships.
That's an excellent point. It's true. Most people don't understand the ebbs and the flows. And one of the things we do, we talk about KPI monitoring or KPI metrics in our business. And what we do is we look at every customer and that you have in a CRM system of some kind, or social relationship management tool, ERP system, whatever. And we take a look at the customer touch points, right? Every time they touch the business, and we monitor them along the customer life cycle. So that if we notice that there's a group of people stuck in one area, we know that we got a problem there, there's a clot. Or if we notice that people are moving backwards instead of moving forwards in terms of the nature of their conversations, the tone, the positivity, negativity, the context, then we know we got a problem, and then we can flag that and deal with it. So it's an excellent point. And again, it goes back to most businesses don't know what their customer life cycle is, and they're certainly not monitoring people along that life cycle if they do. So this is sort of an education. I think social media, for all the good that it's done in the world, has retarded marketers and businesses, quite frankly. We used to understand the value of dyadic relationships, one-to-one relationships, and all of a sudden this thing called the internet came in, and we just wanted mass followings to fuel our egos, and we forgot the basic premise of a business. That's to make money, and that relationships and handshakes, that sells. And so the bigger this thing about the internet, the bigger our communities get, the more important the one-to-one relationship within those communities become. And you have to start focusing on that, not volume.
And I think that's your point. You may have the volume initially, or the byproduct of everything is a big volume, but you need the tools now to find the power of 40, or whatever you want to call it.
Exactly.
Reintroduce yourself?
Introduce myself. I would love to introduce myself. I am Sam Fiorella. I am a principal at Sensei Marketing based in Toronto, and the co-author of Influence Marketing, How to Create, Manage, and Measure Brand Influencers in Social Media.
Thank you.
Great talking to you, Robert.
Always a pleasure, sir.